Hello, everyone. This is Sobriety with Drake, the YouTube channel where we talk about all things addiction, recovery, and sobriety related. And today I have a very special guest. Today I am interviewing from season 11, episode 3 of Intervention, Richard K. Hello, Richard.
Hi, how's it going?
Thanks so much for doing this today. I really appreciate you doing this. I'm a big fan of intervention, and your episode is actually one I very much connected to. I have a very similar story with crystal meth and everything, and so a lot of your episode I really related to. So I just really appreciate you doing this. So we'll get started by talking about going back
Okay.
13 years, all the way back to when your episode aired in 2012. And so we're going
Mm.
to go back in time. And before we get into the actual episode, I have a question first about how were you like approached for filming the show, and like who approached you and what did they tell you it was going to be?
Right. So okay, so it was kind of like well, with the intervention, I mean, I know now it's always like a whole thing, like how it comes to be. But it was a friend of mine, she's in the show, Tamsin.
Oh, yes.
Um, she was like the person who kind of brought this into our experience. And um it was the way that it happened was she said, like we've known each other since we were like 14, 15.
Okay.
And we used to party together and all that kind of stuff. We have like a lot of mutual friends, acquaintances. And so my memory of it is that she said that some folks we knew with a connection to like LA had some friends who were looking to make a documentary about somebody who was kind of like living on drugs, living their life on drugs. And Thames and I weren't actually talking at this point in time.
Okay.
And and so I thought of it as like she called me specifically to ask me this. And my thinking at the time was it was kind of like an olive branch because we were fighting. Of course, because I was like, using crystal
Yeah.
meth and everybody was just kind of like over it.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's why we weren't really talking. And anyhow, so she said, they just want me to film you, like, doing whatever you're doing, like sitting here. And I'll ask you 5 questions and then send it to them. And if they're interested, they'll reach out to you. And that was how it started.
Oh, okay. Very interesting. Yeah, a lot of people, fans of the show, wonder how that like happens with how the participants get approached. So, thank you for clarifying that.
I think it's different for everyone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that story that, the family or the loved ones, whatever, tell or come up with to get the person to agree to it. I'm sure
Yeah.
it varies, but for me, that was like, a good enough thing. And I mean, honestly, it wasn't even the first time somebody wanted to film me. So I was like, oh, well,
Yeah.
they're making a documentary about me. That makes sense, finally.
Yeah. Nice.
So yeah.
Very cool. Well, now we'll get into the actual episode. So the episode opens up with a scene of you doing what we call slamming, which is intravenously injecting methamphetamine. So I want to talk about like because I've been there, I've done it, so I get it.
Yeah.
How did like meth come into your life, and like what was your relationship with it, and like when did you reach the point where you switched to IV use?
So I I was a raver in the 90s when I was
Okay.
like 15, I think is when I started raving. Went to my first rave, I don't know, 93, 94. And yeah, I actually, because I think up to that point I had like, gotten drunk a bunch of times and, I probably smoked a little bit of weed, but I wasn't really into chemicals, chemical substances like
Yeah.
party drugs or whatever. And the first couple raves I went to, I think I took like mushrooms and I took acid or something crazy. Um, and anyhow, so we were just a group of us, a group of friends. We were all kind of the same age, 14 to 16 years old. And we were like just going out every night, all night clubbing. We were like club kids,
Okay.
like literal club kids.
Yes.
And anyways, so at one of these raves, like soon into me going to raves, one of the like folks that we got drugs from or whatever said that they had something we could try, or maybe it was like a conversation that was like going around the party, like, oh, there's this thing called like crystal if you want to try it. or it's like here if if you're interested. And so and it was like cheap,
Yeah.
and we were kids and we had no money. And I think it was just in the moment we're like, yeah. So me and kind of like everyone I knew at that time did it all at the same time for the first time.
Okay.
And yeah, and we just we didn't know anything about it, didn't know really what it was. Went into the bathroom and we started it, and
Okay.
like it burnt like crazy.
Yeah, I bet.
And we just didn't even know what was happening. And then the next thing was like it was like 10 a.m. and we had been like dancing all night long. And
Yeah.
that was how it started. But really, the thing is like I was just kind of really in the throes of enough like trauma and like post-traumatic stress and loneliness and confusion. And I was like really searching for something. And at that point, like life had really been such a nightmare and like no belonging, no fitting in. Finding raves, sort of like, I was like, okay. But even then, raves were like, I was still sticking out as like a queer person at raves, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So I don't know what folks think about like that period, but in Toronto, it was still pretty um straight, even though it was, clubby.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so I think I just like uh what happened is I did this really addictive drug, and I was a kid and I became addicted to it. Honestly, I started doing it, and probably the first 5 years I snorted it or like put it in a rolling paper and ingested it. I didn't even know you could smoke it. Then
Yeah.
kind of like maybe 10 years into it, my friend was like, gay people are doing crystal now, which was confusing because it honestly was usually just like those people from that rave 10 years later were like still the only people kind of doing less that I knew of. And people
Okay.
were on a lot of other things. And then all of a sudden, like gay people were doing it and they were smoking it. I had no idea you could even do that. And at that point, I was probably like, oh, I'm never going to smoke it. Like people seemed really fucked up. Like it just seemed a bit different.
Yeah.
And there was like, I'd be at the bathhouse and there would be like, literally, I'd be there homeless, but like I'd be there at the bathhouse and there would be like some guy smoking meth, and I'd just be kind of like observing. And he'd be talking about like how his life totally falling apart. And it was like, 2 weeks ago, he was like a teacher and now he's like living in the bathhouse.
Oh yeah.
So it did seem to like have a different trajectory with folks. Anyways, of course, I started smoking it, and then another 5 years, and everyone was kind of like injecting it. Not everyone, but like this hardcore sort of core meth using community, and I was really really afraid. It scared me. I'm not into even pain, and I was just afraid of it. And I remember I got my friend who was a nurse to kind of show me the proper way to inject, and yeah, and I started doing it. But the first like 25 times that I did that, I was scared shitless.
Yeah.
Uh, I was so nervous. But I think that like, if you never do drugs, you don't know anything about like substances and consuming substances, you definitely think like injection is like the worst thing you could do, the scariest thing you could do. And I had a lot of that in me at that time. But also, I think that was a catalyst for my friend and my family to do this crazy intervention thing because, all they know is I'm injecting and they think I'm going to die any second. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Well, how did they find out that you were injecting? Did you tell them or
Well, what? I never really hid my drug use from anyone. Like,
okay.
and ever since I remember I think coming home from that rave or our rave and be like, oh my God, I went to this rave and we took acid. And I was too young and naive. Honestly, I like grew up in like a very strict religion, and then life started
Yeah.
to kind of change a little bit. So I was naive, and I just I I never kept it a secret. But the injecting part, I did hold tighter to my chest, and I think my friend Tammy just knew because I think someone else we knew told her, you
Yeah.
know? Because like even in circles of people using substances, like injection can be like a sort of like dividing line.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I get that too. And like when you inject it, it's like a whole different rush you get. Like the first like few seconds. Like I've been there, and it's and that in itself, and like the preparing of it can be addicting as well, and that becomes like a ritual. So I'm glad it only lasted, but because it seems like it only lasted the last 6 months of your use before the show. That's what they said. It was like only about 6 months you were doing it. That's what the show said.
Oh, mm,
Like injecting, like you were, they said you had been using crystal for 10 years, but you started injecting 6 months ago at the time of the filming.
maybe that seems like not that long.
Okay.
Um, but I was dating that guy, and that's kind of where it all started. And
Okay.
so could be, but I don't know. Maybe I guess because I felt like I was doing it forever. I felt like I was injecting for like 5 years, but maybe it
Oh,
wasn't. You
okay.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
yeah, but
Maybe
also everything that's on the show is not like accurate. You know what I
that,
mean?
yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to get to as well for like some of the next few questions. Like I was going
Yeah.
to ask, like, was that really like this, or was it the show manipulating the story? So we'll get to that. But the first next question I want to ask now that we talked about that was the show explains how you turned to sex work to support yourself, and even mentioned an instance where you were gang raped. Can you explain a little bit more about your experience as a sex worker and what it was like?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that is also one of the things that they got wrong because if anything, I was like a failed sex worker. Do you know what I mean? Like I
Okay.
feel like
Yeah.
sex worker makes it sound like I was really making some good things happen. And
Yeah.
like it wasn't really like that. Like, yeah, of course I would have sex with people for money if they wanted to, but I was also just like having so much sex just for
Yeah.
free.
Crystal does
Um,
that. Yeah.
yeah, and like, but you know what's so interesting is like it wasn't like that when I was a raver. Like we didn't even know that like it was a sexual thing. Like I didn't even
Yeah.
know that part of meth really until later.
They were showing you
Oh,
like
right.
walking the streets and like
No,
like
right. So
yeah.
no, I was like, no, I was walking the street. So the show started filming me like, so right now it's like Monday, Pride in Toronto, or it's Tuesday. Pride in Toronto just finished on Sunday.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because they started to film me on the Friday night of Pride weekend, right?
Oh, okay.
So because I was like, we had like meetings and stuff like and I was like, well, if you're coming around this time, why don't you come at Pride, and then you can really see what I'm up to and really like, so I had like a camera crew following me around like Pride Toronto, living the full fantasy. They didn't show any of those things, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
wow.
And me on the street is like I was, that scene where I'm with that guy, Renko, my boyfriend at the time,
Yeah.
who didn't really want to be in the show, but he's in for like 1 second.
Okay.
And that was a crazy relationship. But
Yeah.
I still have so much love for him from that time
Yeah.
just because it was so intense. But uh so we were like looking for someone who was gonna drop drugs off to us or something. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
Like
okay.
that was not a scene of me walking the street. And I mean, if
Gotcha.
it was, I would be happy it was. Like
Yeah.
that's just not what it was, you
Okay.
know? Yeah, it was just like I had been out. It was the Friday night of Pride. I don't know if you know what Pride Toronto's like, but it's just crazy. Like
Yeah.
stages set up everywhere, DJs. I was like taking MDMA and like dancing all night, and they were filming me. And then I met up with the my boyfriend, and that's what that scene is from me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because they didn't
Because
clarify in the show that it
when
was
I
your
said
boyfriend.
when I'm
Yeah.
like 6'7", is that him? It's like I'm talking about Ranko, who was six foot
Oh,
seven.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
they didn't imply that. They more implied it was like a stranger or something. Or that was
yeah,
the so that's good you clarified that. Good to know. So we'll move on to the next question. So next in the show, they kind of take a journey back into your childhood. Like they showed like the baby photos and stuff like that. But they
yeah.
mentioned how your childhood upbringing, you endured a lot of bullying at school, and that you also experienced abuse from your stepdad growing up. And they kind of insinuated that this is the reason why you developed a drug habit. Was that a narrative the producers kind of pushed, or was that true? Like, did the bullying and abuse from your stepdad like kind of trigger drug use at a young age?
Um, yeah, I think that like the trauma of that, and of, like the physical abuse, like the constant physical abuse, the near constant, like when it was happening, sexual abuse, like I couldn't at that time at 15 years old, like articulate why I was doing what I was doing, how
Mhm.
any of those things even felt. Do you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
was like covering and, placing and kind of compartmentalizing and realizing the impact of all of those things really now. Uh,
Okay.
like I think and so obviously, yeah, I wasn't raised in a safe place. So is it strange that I, at 15, like, you know, became addicted to a really addictive drug and just kind of went off and running? No, it makes sense.
Okay.
I think that's why I was often shocked, when my family, although I do understand, but it was like, I would often think like, what is the expectation here? Like, what did you expect me to be at this
Yeah.
point with this upbringing? Uh, what was I supposed to turn out as? You know what I mean?
The show mentions like this period of time in your early 20s where you discovered the LGBT community and you were kind of flourishing. Like they mentioned this, they give this little montage of that. Tell me more about that time, and were you like using at that time, or and was it just like
Yeah.
contained?
Yeah, I was always using from like the since I started it until I finished it. You know what I mean? In 2012. Uh, but there would be periods where like you couldn't get meth.
Mm.
And so I would like because it's a long time, many, many, many years. And like sometimes meth would go underground and then sometimes it would be back in the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
And I think that like I use something all the time. Do coke, I guess, if I wasn't doing meth, or go through a period where I was doing like, more ecstasy and MDMA and things like that. And
Okay.
I was able to get things together. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was
I
like
still
functional.
always, yeah, I still always had dreams and goals and things like that. That was really kind of part of the, you know, naivete or like sort of immaturity of my brain at that time. Because before I was separated from crystal meth, I still felt like I could be all that I wanted to be.
Yeah, we
You know
see
what I
that in the
mean?
show. Like you had a lot of confidence still. Like it didn't like beat you down to the ground yet. I feel like it was like it gave you like you still had hope, and you like
Yeah.
you had the dream board I saw, and like
Yeah.
you seem
I
very like
still
and
do.
yeah, and I love
I
your spiritual like sense of nature, like your spirituality. Like you always had that, which was cool.
Yeah, I never lost that. I mean, obviously it
Yeah.
was like almost like a radio channel that's experiencing a lot of distortion,
Yeah.
but it was still there flickering, that like
Yeah.
tuning. And I was always like the thing that's so weird is like I only crave like safety and security.
Yeah.
And I I didn't, you know, I didn't feel like yes, like being homeless for all of those years, like no fixed address, and then like just stone cold homeless, for all of those years. That is what wore me down. You know what I mean? Of course, using drugs takes a toll on your body and your mind.
Mm.
Um, but it was really, I think, the thing that initially kind of broke me and is still needing repair is just growing up every day being like just terrorized. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And all of this is really more about that, you know,
Yeah.
because those are the reasons that I like wouldn't, I didn't have anything to maintain. I didn't have I didn't have a home to be grateful for and
Mm.
thoughtful about and take care of. I didn't have anything that sort of are all of those kind of social determinants of like good health and happiness.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's not surprising, it's not unusual that like whatever it was that crystal meth was giving me was more than enough.
Yeah. It gives you like that sense of security that you don't have because, oh, I have this and this will make me feel
Yeah.
good. So, yeah, I totally get that. Next, I wanted to talk about the show mentions like a kind like a very tragic loss you experienced with the passing of your sister, who you were really close to, and then how you
Yeah.
kind of went down a downward spiral with like like using crystal regularly, and then other drugs such as GHB and ketamine. I want to hear more about that
Oh yeah.
time and like your relationship with
Yeah.
GHB and ketamine because I used when I was addicted, I used meth, GHB, and ketamine on a daily basis. So I want to hear
Yeah.
more about the GHB and ketamine and what that time was like.
I mean, they're so random. The show is so random and it's so
Yeah.
stupid. It's like I always like I was a raver, I was a clever, do you know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
I always did math. That was like the thing that was kind of I always did. I had periods like where I would be in a relationship, like my first significant kind of second significant relationship. But it was like the first time that I really, really was like in love and love and love. Like I was like
Yeah.
just so obsessed in love. Like,
Yeah.
anyways, so there'd be periods there, and it was more normal at that time to just be drinking and like using cocaine. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
if we would go out to like a club, I always took like ecstasy and stuff like that. But the thing that after my sister died, like there were times, or there's always times when um, you know, step into the water a little bit further. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or you might remember certain times you were like using substances and you think, oh, I've never like felt like this before. Like you're like, I never really have been this fucked up before. Like
Yeah.
just even the high, like where it's taking you, the feelings, like you're just like, oh yeah, I'm really like on a trip. Like
Yeah.
this is happening. And I think that oh my God, what was bringing me there? It was about the question. Hold on a second. Oh, right, the time with my sister. So I think at the time that my sister died, um, yeah, it was I yeah, I just got really fucked up. I got
Yeah.
really it just altered me uh, in a really impactful, like profound way. And so I did probably definitely like uh the intensity with my like meth use like increased. I probably became more um, fixed and just like my world got a bit smaller.
Okay.
And I had like a housing at that time, an apartment, and I started like writing on all the walls and like painting lyrics that reminded me. I was just I stopped talking. Like I kind of was like mute. I would often be in that apartment with all these people I didn't know how they got there. And I mean, for years after my sister died, I would just at some point in a period of time of hours, I would like kind of freak out about it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I could imagine that would be really hard. And like, so you talk about you kind of like isolated more and like we're not yourself as much as like for a while.
Yeah. And but also I had no idea who I was, like what myself was
Yeah. Yeah.
until like I feel like I'm just kind of really like getting clarity on that now.
Okay.
So it's not like I felt like I wasn't being myself, but I was like constantly in survival mode. So these things did not seem that strange. Yes, my
Yeah.
sister dying seemed totally absurd and completely unacceptable and like a terror, but it wasn't like the other things, like the desperation, the despair, the sort of having nothing, having everything, losing, like that was normal for me. And
Yeah.
it's interesting that people would think that that those sort of things would alarm me, but they were literally just like home. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
They become
if
normal
you,
after so long. Yeah.
yeah, and but so long, like from my whole life, like I
Yeah.
literally, like, the abuse started as soon as, like, my first memories are memories of abuse. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
yeah, of course, I find myself years later with no therapy, with no support, with no kind of like, um, recalibration,
Hmm.
and I'm just out there fighting and existing.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And thank you for clarifying that. And now I'll kind of get into the pre-intervention because I wanted to hear your thoughts on watching this on the episode live because you weren't there. We see Candy conducting the pre-intervention where we see your mother like storm out because Candy's like telling her that she has to stop enabling you and she doesn't want to do it. And then we see your brother kind of getting schooled by Candy on what addiction is. Like one thing I really liked that Candy said to him was, an addict who is sick doesn't realize how sick they are, so you can't be mad at him for being sick. So what were your thoughts when you saw that pre-intervention and saw that part of the episode?
Um, okay. I so in my mind, well, in reality, I absolutely never agreed to be on intervention. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? I was not given the opportunity to make an informed decision about what the fuck I was doing
yeah,
with my image, with all of the stories of my life. And nor did the people on the other side who are involved. It's a real exploitation and manipulation of everyone. And
mm-hmm.
it's taking advantage of people's kind of like worst fears that they're going to lose a loved one. And so it's high drama reality TV, like under the guise of like helping people, which often is a terrible reason to do something, like
Yeah.
it's yeah. So I I didn't like I only know that stuff that happened, them with Candy. I never even spoke to Candy myself. I didn't ever even meet her.
Oh yeah, because
I
yeah,
Yeah, and so I left and I really, really left.
yeah.
And then when they were talking, I just, you know what I felt like when I finally saw it was I was embarrassed
Oh,
for my well, I was embarrassed just I mean, it was heartbreaking because the moment I open the door and I see that it's intervention and that every single thing was a lie.
so
Do you know
did
what I
you
mean?
know what intervention was?
I knew about the show,
Okay.
and like people sometimes on drugs would like watch it, and I was always like, "Oh, that's terrible. I'll turn that. I don't want to watch that." So it's not
Yeah.
something I was into. You know what I mean? But
Yeah. So
so
yeah, sorry to interrupt.
at no point do they ever say like this is intervention? In fact, they said no, that this is exactly not that. You know what I mean?
Oh
That
wow.
they were gonna come for 2 weeks and film me, and if there's a story there, then they will, go to LA and come back and then follow me for like a year. And this would be a documentary that had a theatrical release. Like
Oh wow.
I was like, I'm not even doing this if this is for television. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was like negotiating my deal. I thought like it was all just bullshit. It was all a lie. Everything I signed was fake. Like it's all fake. Plus, you cannot can't legally, lawfully sign a contract when you're like under the influence of illicit substances
Oh wow.
or intoxicated. Like it's illegal to
Yeah.
do that. So they never had my consent. You know what I
Wow.
mean? Because I was not in a place to sign anything, to
Yeah.
enter into any like abiding agreement. But so when I saw that with my family, when I only saw that when I watched the episode, and I just thought, while all that was happening, I guess they were communicating with me back and forth through like email, sometimes a phone call, text. It was really intense,
Yeah.
crazy. And I like, hello, I'm on crystal meth. Like I'm living in a fucking sketch. Like this is insanity. Some
Yeah.
television show from LA is like chasing me around the streets of Toronto. I didn't know if they could like arrest me. Like I didn't know if I did something
Yeah.
wrong. Like I had no idea what was going on. It was so dysregulating. And also all of the hopes getting that this opportunity that I thought came my way through like good faith was gonna like be something for me. And it was just like a fucking like I was getting punked on intervention.
Yeah.
Uh
Yeah.
and in that moment it was just like I felt so much sadness and shame. But anyhow, sorry. So my brother, I don't care. I don't like. I don't care. Well,
Yeah.
I can't really, I don't have an opinion like on what my brother was doing even there, or like I don't have an understanding of why he was there. I don't know what went on between us that like he will never let go of. And, I had tried to do the amends process with him and it just
Yeah.
didn't, I still don't speak to him, you
Oh
know.
wow. Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
so I was just like, what is he doing on there? And kind of felt in watching it the same way I did when you see us engaging in the episode. Like,
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck. My brother has always been like frightening to me, like no longer frightening, but when I was a kid, you know, um, scary. And then I kind of looked up to him for a bit, and then he was just like a really negative, tormented person. And I think the way that he communicates is abusive, and so I just don't,
Yeah.
you know, fucking care. You know what I mean? I just don't want that. So, but seeing my mother is always very like emotional for me, and I, I, I don't know. I just wish that we all didn't have our ass caught, get caught with our asses out. Like it's such a fuck over manipulation. This
Yeah.
this television show part of it, and I had agreed to another project and to share everything, with whatever that other thing was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But I don't like that like everybody's they got all of our history, all of our stories for nothing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Tammy, my friend who's in the episode and who sort of brought all this to us, we just talked a couple days ago and she had just watched it that morning, like
Oh.
Sunday morning. And I said, that was so crazy because I'm about to talk to somebody about
Oh
it.
wow.
And she was having like a real trauma response when she was watching it. It's been a long time since she watched it.
Oh
And the
wow.
truth is that everybody was exploited in
Yeah.
this episode. And so, but at that time, sorry, I'm just
Oh no,
how
you're good.
I
You're actually
communicate, but
answering a lot of my questions I had for the future, so this is good.
okay.
Yeah.
At that time, like watching it, I just felt, I don't know, I felt bad for my mom.
Yeah.
Um, I and I think the enabling thing, okay, I don't give a shit about that kind of stuff anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I also have spent the last 13 years working in radical harm reduction,
Yeah, I
programs
did see that. Yeah.
professionally.
Yeah.
And
It's amazing.
so my whole, those sort of like old, you know, narratives of like, yeah, of course people can enable you, and I'm sure my mom did, but like really, it's not like she gave me money when she had it because I needed it. And
Yeah.
like I feel like the real crime there, if there was one, is with my childhood. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like yeah, of course. Like I'm cracked out. I'm on the streets of Toronto. I have nowhere to go. I need drugs. I'm gonna have a mental health fucking crisis. My mom sent me $50. It's not like she was sending me like thousands and thousands of
Yeah.
dollars. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? My
exactly.
brother is under the impression that like she spent our inheritance. One time we were talking on the phone and he was like, whatever. Uh, some family members you can't talk to past a certain time of the night because they
Yeah.
just are not, it's not going to be good. And
Yeah.
so he was like, she spent all of our inheritance on you. And it's like, bitch, what? There was no
Yeah.
fucking inheritance.
Yeah.
There's no like trust fund. There's nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there never was. We weren't a family with money. So,
Yeah. So that was kind of like something the show kind of pushed, like because they never specified the amount of money or like how many times. They just showed your brother, being disgusted at it. But also, I honestly was disgusted with your brother with the way he said
or is
was the way he said about you
it's
being gay growing.
disgusting.
Like yeah, like he was the one that was disgusting because he was the one that was
Uh,
like saying that because you were gay he was ashamed and like it really affected him that you were gay.
I know.
I'm like, oh my god,
He,
how self-centered of that is that to say that your brother being gay affected you in a negative way? Like Like
No,
that's
he was literally giving, it's been a terrible thing for me.
yeah.
Like I just thank God I didn't walk into that intervention because I would have started telling everybody the truth. And
Yeah. Yeah.
as I saw it. And but oh God, what was I saying? Fuck. Oh, who knows? Maybe it'll come back. But oh right, sorry. I was never mad at my niece Victoria,
Yeah.
who was in the episode, like even while that was happening, and that was crazy 48 hours from me opening the door in the following kind of 48 hours. I
Yeah.
really tried to maintain my composure when I was like communicating with her. Um, and I try to be the same way with my friend Angela, who was in it,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, the one who like chased me down the street.
Yeah.
And like, that was so crazy. And I honestly didn't know what to do. And I was like, I can't hit this woman, but I'm like, you needed to get out. That's why I was so like,
Yeah. It
because
looked
I'm
like
just
you were
like,
just trying to get the bag
yeah,
off
I'm
of
just like,
you.
let me get my, yeah, like just go. I wasn't even like, I think trying to hold on to the bag. I think she was holding the bag to hold on to me.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure for months and months after, I was like, whatever I lost in that bag, like
Yeah.
whatever drugs hit the floor,
Yeah.
I definitely thought about them, like them being missing, gone,
Yeah.
like that I'm sure plagued me. But I I felt most like in those moments protective of Ange and Victoria and maybe a little bit my mother.
Yeah.
But I didn't give two fucks about what was happening with Peter. I
Yeah.
didn't even know why he was there.
Yeah. It didn't seem like he had very good motives to be there until, but then he does kind of like break down at one point and um but I don't know. It was like it's interesting to hear
I know,
your
but
take
what
on
is he
that.
breaking down over? The way he feels about himself?
Yeah,
Like
it seemed also
was
like he was being more self-interested. Like, I don't know, it didn't seem genuine at points.
here's the thing is like I have lived, with, I've lived a stable life. Like I've lived with stability and increased capacity ever since I was like, separated from crystal meth
Yeah.
in 2012. And like, so I've had many years of, you know, being as in tuned and engaged and present as centered as I could be, on any given day. And it's like interesting that stability, sort of like everybody kind of got what they were fighting for on that show was
Yeah.
like for me to get my shit together. And then I did, and it was like, you know, it revealed all of these other challenges those folks were having. Do you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
whatever they thought me having some stability was going to do, like I don't really think it produced that. Because um whatever anybody else was up to all those years, now it was like really sticking out because I was like an
Yeah.
angel. You know what
Like
I mean?
before they had to like when they had problems in their life, they were more focused on your problems instead of they didn't have time to look at their own. So like you getting
Yeah.
sober and like getting stability, it kind of made them take a look at their problems now. Like so that makes
Well,
sense.
no, not take a look, but it highlighted them. Do you know what I
Okay.
mean? And
Yeah.
so, it's just I guess I'm speaking to the disingenuousness of like my brother during the episode and just being there at all and the years following when I, really gave my best 12 steps try to do like
Yeah.
amends with
Yeah.
him and everything.
Step. Yeah.
And he was just serving in a bad way
Yeah.
always. You know what I mean? He was not open to it.
Wow. That's very sad to hear because
I know like I did fucked up things to him. Like I used his credit card without asking. I
mhm.
did pay that back,
Yeah,
whatever I
financial amends. Yeah.
conjured up as, but like I did stuff like that. But I don't actually recall like a huge, terrible thing. I mean, we did get in a physical fight at my stepfather's wedding. But that
Yeah.
was really rooted in like consuming alcohol and not like
Yeah.
whatever. But I think he was just coming at me and I just went crazy. But like
Yeah.
we didn't have like me and my mother, we have years of this kind of like fraught communication and like blame and this and you know what I'm saying? But like I don't know what really it is that Peter like couldn't let go of. Um,
Yeah.
like, and maybe it's something I don't even remember, or maybe it's literally nothing. I don't know.
Yeah, you did. It sounds like you did your side of the road and kept your side of the road clean, did your part in the 12 steps, like they say, like making amends. And it's up to him now to, how he handles that. And you can't really do anything else
Yeah.
except for just be yourself and, keep doing the right thing, the next right thing, which it seems like you're doing. And so you answered like a ton of my questions that I had after that. Like I was going to ask like how you felt when you walked through those doors and saw everyone, and you answered that. And then I was going to say, like how is the relationship with your brother and your mother now? So you talked about your brother, but are you and your mother close now? Like are you still on rough terms, or is it like a good relationship?
Um, you know, uh, I think that things worked out best with my sister Allison. We were really able to, I mean, we were good. It, you know, separating myself from crystal meth and all of that and gaining clarity and stability, it showed me that like, Allison was, I guess mad at me. Like I disrupted her life. I disrupted her peace often, but she was like kind of a real like caretaker too. And so she didn't have that kind of like vitriol that Peter was like experiencing. So
Yeah.
things went really well for Allison and I after like I mean after the show, after that moment, I really didn't talk to anyone for a few months at all, at all.
Yeah.
But then, once I went through that sort of like, change, I had a great amends with Allison and we had a great relationship
Oh, great.
for many, 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 many years. And my mom, that seemed uh like it went well too. And I sort of became like a good boy in her eyes. I felt like a good son. I tried to be
Oh,
like uh provide for her when I could, like if she wanted me to get her something crazy for her birthday and, extravagant, I would do whatever I would. Like I
oh,
kind of, the way that that sort of ended up is I just felt like I would do whatever she wanted and whatever she asked of me. And
okay.
part of my life would be like just kind of now being there. And then it's interesting because in COVID, things kind of shifted with my sister because like with the vaccines and conspiracy theories and people being
Yeah.
like you know obviously we don't have Trump here, but like there's a lot of Canadians who have gotten sucked into the whole machine,
Yeah.
and so my sister and I, because my thing was like I wasn't going to fight with my family at all, period, at all. So like me and my sister didn't get into a fight for all of these years. Kind of COVID was like the first time my sister and I had a fight, and we didn't talk for a while. And
Okay.
then we started communicating again. Because I was just like, you're fucked. Plus, I work in healthcare. I can't be around you if you're not vaccinated. I'm working like with, whatever.
Yeah.
And it just was a real rift. And then, I haven't spoken to my mother in since December.
Oh, wow.
Uh, and I don't know if I'll ever speak to her again.
Oh,
I honestly don't know. Like, um, in I'm sure you can tell from like my social media and stuff that like, I've gone through a breakup. My husband and I are getting divorced, and
yeah.
that was like really, really unexpected. And so during that time, my mom was just calling me like to check in how I was doing. And um so at that point still like last September, October, November, I'm still good with my mom.
Yeah.
And then, you know, here's the thing. A couple years ago, a cousin of mine called me freaking out and he was um, like, Uncle John is on Facebook. Uncle John's on Facebook. And, you know, I haven't seen my uncle who I like, was, abused by. I had sex with like till I was 14. I hadn't seen
Yeah.
him since like I was 15 or something in a courtroom. And it was, all I remember of it is like I kind of got forced into like doing this whole like justice thing and through like children's aid at the time. And
Okay.
he was so there was thing he anyways, he ran away. He didn't like he wasn't there for a verdict. I don't remember if there even was one, and he just
Wow.
was not there. He was at the first couple things and then he was just gone and never came back. And
Yeah.
my
Interesting.
cut yeah, my
Because
cousin
on the
was
show
like,
they say he got a year. Like he got a year, and but like it sounds like he didn't even get sentenced or
no, I don't think he anything happened.
wow.
Because he wasn't there. He didn't show up.
Yeah,
Did
yeah,
they catch him some other time and he did a year? I don't know. But
yeah.
my cousin called me and he's like, Uncle John's on Facebook, on my mom's Facebook. Like he's
Oh,
like, I'm not on Facebook.
yeah,
Um, I I worked and lived in the Arctic for 5 months in 2024, and up there, everybody communicates through Facebook. So I had to download it again.
yeah.
That's when I saw with my own eyes that my mother was friends with my uncle on Facebook,
Oh
who
my
I haven't,
gosh.
you know, and I was so committed to not harming my mother. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
After all the harm that I feel that I caused her, I I I couldn't speak to her about this. It just so many things happened when I sort of saw that this was happening
yeah,
to me. I did start to really, you know, I was kind of like just catapulted into the throes of like PTSD sort of response.
I can
And
imagine. Yeah.
I would talk about it with my therapist. And, so, anyways, like 2 years kind of go by, or a year and a half, where I have this, well, about 2 years. Saw it only in 2024, but it was out there for like a couple years.
Okay.
And this night, my mother calls me in December to see how I'm doing. Something was weird about the conversation, and she disclosed that she was like going back to the Kingdom Hall again. And I just thought that was so nuts because I believe she believes in Jehovah God. Like I believe she believes in a higher power, spiritual being,
Yeah,
and I believe that she would still refer to that energy as Jehovah God. And I think I do the same thing just from you know upbringing. Like, but I don't believe in that religion. My mother, I know, doesn't believe in that religion either.
yeah,
Uh, so I was like, she was like, no, no, I believe it. Because I was like, what are you talking about? I said, the kingdom of heaven is inside of you. Like,
yeah,
what are you doing? Like, this is not you. This is some made up fucking religion in the early 1900s. It's like science fiction. It's stupid. It's like, this isn't, I'll say again, just the kingdom of heaven is inside of you. Like, you know what I mean?
hmm,
And I told her, like, even the Bible, it says, like, you don't need to go and you won't find me in houses of wood and stone. Look under a rock, you'll find me there. You know what I mean? Go into a room, shut the door, and, get on your knees. Like, it's so there's no reason aside from, like, I don't know, some social thing, which would be fine. Like, through the years, she had gone to the meetings for that, to just engage socially, to support my aunt who sometimes goes and doesn't go.
like
But this,
Al-Anon.
she's like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
She just like, and so my mom's like, so I'm like, you're just a Jehovah's Witness again. She's like, yeah, I believe it. I believe it's time. And I said, okay, this is a long story, but this is the point of the whole long story is
Hmm.
that I said, okay, I'm kind of crazy. My marriage is fucking into smithereens. My mom's calling to see how I'm doing, and she's telling me she's now like, a homophobic fucking Jehovah's Witness again.
Yeah,
And I said, okay, so you're a Jehovah's Witness, you believe it. So tell me this. Why the fuck are you friends with Uncle John on Facebook? And like I had held that in for 2 years. And yeah, this wasn't going to be like a great conversation at this point, but I was just so upset
yeah,
and pushing this like narrative of like religion and what's like even thinking for a moment that she has a concept of what is right and what is good, and she's publicly like communicating with the like the the thing that like altered my brain, my whole life, the trajectory
Yeah.
of my entire life, like and she said that she felt like he apologized
Wow.
and you know, I understand her wanting to know what's up with her brother. Do you know what I mean? I understand that. Like, I just feel like it's something that should have happened really privately. Like, honestly, like, don't tell anyone. Certainly don't do it openly on Facebook, but don't even tell me. Don't tell my sisters. Like, if you want to go see your brother who like fucked your son
Hmm.
until he was 14 years old, because you're curious if he's okay, like, you know, keep
Yeah.
that on lock. Like, do that by yourself and, you know, and be a little bit kind of like embarrassed and ashamed of it, but do it, you know,
Yeah.
alone. And I just told her that she had made such an grievous error in judgment, that she had
Yeah.
harmed me. And, you know, she said, you know, I made mistakes. And I said, no, mom, we made amends. This is not I'm not here. That's why I never brought it up because I wasn't there. I never wanted to bring up all that stuff to my mom again.
Yeah.
Like, I never was holding on after we had our amends. Like, I felt like I did a lot. She did a lot. I did a lot. Of course, I was a kid, but, you know, when I was an adult, and so I said, this is not about that. I'm not, I tried to protect her from my disappointment for the last
Yeah.
2 years of knowing this information. Do you know what I mean? I tried to shield her from my anger and like just utter confusion and disappointment. And anyways, you know, I said, this is about right now. Like this the problem, what you have accomplished with these actions, this choice is about now. We were good.
Yeah.
And now, like, we're not. There's no, so I don't know, like, maybe she would call me to apologize or something at some point. I don't know. I would
Yeah.
like have a conversation with her if she tried to arrange one, but it wouldn't change anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, then this is really what I'm talking about earlier about like what they said about my childhood or like that these things made me more of like a, would trigger me to use drugs. And it's like, no, these things just triggered me into like disordered thinking, disordered existing.
Yeah. Like you
I,
said, survival mode.
yeah, I had nothing to stand on, nothing to keep safe, nothing to tend to in my life, you know?
Yeah.
And, uh, and, you know, fast forward to this, you know, conversation with my mother, and it's like, I feel like I have so much to protect and to, um, revere and keep safe and sound. And I just knew that whatever she prioritized him,
Yeah.
I have nowhere to go with that.
Yeah. It's
I like the whole thing. I don't, have you ever experienced sexual abuse?
yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so like you kind of know, I don't know. Sure, it works kind of similar for everybody. Is it just, you know, even that day on the phone, I told her, I was like, Mom, I've never even had an orgasm without thinking about my uncle. Okay, in
Yeah.
my whole life, I'm 48. I've never even, you know, had a single orgasm without thinking about my uncle. Because I'm trying to tell her, like, you understand what this, because she's like, he's been separated from his family. He, I'm like, what? I said,
Yeah.
I am not who I would have been if this didn't happen. Like this
Yeah.
started to happen when my brain was still developing and it has altered my sexual activity, sexual expression, sexual training. Like it,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like a lot of other things I've been able to come to a place of like growth or understanding or just I could place it somewhere, leave it there. And it's like, but there are still so many aspects of like having these experiences and having this training while my brain was still developing. Well, it comes up in the episode all the time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I think that was like one of the shocking things of that episode is like somebody's actually saying those things out loud, you
Yeah.
know, about, you know, growing up being sexually abused by a family member and then, you know, having like an incest like obsession as an adult.
Yeah, it's a lot more common than people think, and it doesn't even have to be incest. It could be any sort of obsession. Like there's so many, and it's something that I'm glad it was brought up and talked about because there's a lot of people that I'm sure suffer from the same thing. And as exploitative as the show is, I do think you as an individual have impacted and inspired the lives of so many people with your story. And I know it wasn't consensual, you sharing that to the world. But I hope you know it really inspired a lot of people. And you've just even your story being shared, so many people could relate. Like so many things in that episode. Like I cry every time I watch your episode because I just feel for you. Because I've been there. Like those things happened to me. Those things are I went through. And so like it was exploitative, but there's good that has come out of it. It's just so you know. This I wanted to let you know that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And I mean, I've known people have reached out to me ever since it happened. People still reach out to me all the time.
Yeah.
There's like, it also like comes in waves. I think like whatever streamer it's playing on, like, or there'll be this period and like there's like tons of people from Germany messaging me every night
Oh
telling me they just
wow.
watched it and tell me their story and so like, I, parts of it I was able to like, kind of like pivot and kind of like positive spin with is I knew that people were connecting with it.
Yeah.
And I obviously I know why, and it makes sense to me that that happens. Um, and yeah, and so that's like a good part of it. But
Yeah.
it's not like um, I'm just a human being.
Yeah.
This intervention thing kind of like elevated parts of my life and made them very public. And at times I felt like I I don't know, I had to really like represent certain things. And it's not like whatever, I was using drugs, I went on intervention, uh and whatever, and my life was changed. That's not the whole story. That's
Yeah.
like just how all of this kind of started. And you know, it's so many years later,
Yeah. 13
13 years
years.
later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
I'm so
they
glad.
actually
Yeah.
filmed it in 2011. So they filmed
Okay.
it July 2011.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it premiered January 2012.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been like almost 14 years. Today's July 1st. So yeah, like 14 years. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
we've covered a lot of like what you've been up to since the show, but if is there anything else you want to say about your episode or what you've been up to since the show? I know I saw an article online that you actually were employed for a organization called AMP that like invited like meth addicts to these events to like eat and like organize their clothes and stuff. I
Oh,
saw
the AMP group or something, or the
yeah.
AMP project. I had like lots. Like I've worked in healthcare and harm reduction, so I was probably my second year, like 2014. Yeah, I still had like a caseworker at that point, and she said, there's this like program where for people with lived experience, and you can do like a peer training program. I
Like a
didn't
peer
have
recovery coach.
No, like
Oh,
no,
okay.
no, it's not. It's not recovery coaching.
Oh, okay.
It's not. It's nothing. It's like it's support, but like it was just like a training to be a peer worker. So
Oh,
he
okay.
like so working in harm reduction as like a person with lived experience. Do you know what I mean?
Okay,
And
nice.
and so I did that, and then I had this, these kind of like rickety opportunities to do very casual work, but I had such a like significant amount of stability and capacity at that time that I was able to turn it into like non-peer, like, salaried positions. And very, very quickly, like within 2 years, I was just working in management and harm reduction management, healthcare
Wow.
coordinating programs. And so I held groups. That period, the AMP project was like, just a drop in for folks who use meth to just I don't know, be there and have a space and I don't know,
Yeah.
unpack and repack and unpack their bags or
Yeah.
eat whatever they want, and just like a place to talk about whatever you want to talk about. And it was pretty successful as a program. And then I ended up in COVID, I really started working more and more on the side of like supervised injection sites and safe
Oh,
supply
wow.
programs and managed alcohol programs, um, where folks who would drink non-beverage alcohol, like rubbing alcohol or Listerine instead of, beverage alcohol.
Yeah.
Uh, they would, there'd be a process and they would be in the program and then they would, get a dispensation of like beverage alcohol
Yeah.
on a schedule. Uh,
Okay.
so that became like my life's work.
That's awesome.
Um, Up until like January of 2024. And I haven't really done that work. I've consulted for some hospitals who are putting harm reduction policies in place.
Okay.
Um, but I'm at a professionally that way, like just at a crossroads and think focusing more on like academia right now for the first time like ever.
Yeah, I saw that.
And
Congratulations on your diploma.
thank you. Thank you.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was wild. Like I felt like such a kid and but also so old, but so young. And it was really meaningful for me. Which I knew it would be, but it really, really was. And at a time when like life has been so crazy. Like just a marriage ending is absolute nuts. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You just feel like our heart is breaking for a year. Like everything
Yeah.
is it's just it has been so much to like get through, but I have. So that's good. But yeah,
Great.
I just worked really in the most like radical sort of expressions, true expressions of non-interference and of harm reduction. And if I have a passion at all in life right now, it would be sort of non-interference
Okay.
um and just social justice.
Okay, I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations on everything you've accomplished since the show. Is there anything else that you want to talk about, like any like thing about your YouTube channel, or do you want to plug any social?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I mean, I loved my channel. I might do something again, but I'm also going through like a whole thing of like, you know, um like just with spending, with shopping. I just sold my perfume collection. When
Ah.
I was just in Toronto for a month before I had to come back up here for my graduation. I still have probably like 130 bottles, but like
Oh
I
wow.
sold hundreds of bottles. I sold everything because I was there packing up my apartment. Like I'm moving to a totally different city. I'm just
Yeah.
everything's different. It's over, right? And
Yeah.
so I've been changing a lot of things, and I really loved what I sort of came up with in my videos. I they soon enough, it's sort of when I landed on like Richard Kikot as having a scent memory, I was like, oh, this is really me. This is really my channel. Like obviously I'm a storyteller, can't stop talking.
Yeah. Oh, you're
And
great.
it was like trauma dumps and perfume. Do you know what I mean? Perfume
Yeah.
hauls. But I was able to, obviously I wanted to say those things, you know what I mean? And it felt like a vehicle for my own self-expression and creativity. But also it's like, you know, I love all the people who watch my videos. I still communicate with a lot of people that I met through that period, but
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, I'll do something again. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
what, but the channel,
Definitely a star.
I've hidden all the videos because I'm just like, I'm too vain as well. And I just like, I was, it was like the whole period of COVID. Like I gained so much weight. Like I'm just like all these different people. If you look at all the thumbnails as time
Yeah.
goes on, but I do think that a lot of them were good for what they were. And
Okay.
yeah,
Where can people find you on like on Instagram? Do you want to plug your Instagram?
sure. It's just Art de Triomphe, which is like at RDETRIOMPHE, like the l'Arc de Triomphe, but just R for
All right.
Richard.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Richard, for your time. I really appreciate you doing this interview. You're my first like official interview for my channel. I did one with, do you know Christy from Intervention? The
No,
meth.
I don't know
Oh,
anybody
oh, okay.
from Intervention.
I did like
I've never even watched another episode.
okay, yeah, I did like like it was a kind of interview with her, but you're like my first official one. So thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Well, I've never spoken to anybody in this kind of a formal way about this ever. I've talked about it on my perfume channel here and there, things will come out, but I've never done this before. Like
Yeah, well,
I never talked
nice.
to anybody about intervention. I never spoke to A&E ever again. Like I've never.
Yeah.
So it's your first time, and this is literally the first time I've ever done this. So,
Oh, well, thank you.
maybe
I
it'll be
really
good.
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
All right, bye.